well, time for a look at the papers. With us this morning in the studio to review them is former editor of the Daily Star, it's Dawn Neeson, and we've also got, luckily, the UK editor of The Big Issue, it's Paul McNamee. Morning to both of you.
Morning.
Well, there's so much to get through, isn't there, in the papers, wide-ranging as well, but both of you want to talk about, and we couldn't start anywhere else other than the Daily Mail, because Boris is back again. Dawn, what do you make of this?
Well, great minds think alike. Paul and I both selected this this front page on the Daily Mail. It's the top half of it is all Boris Johnson, the man who will not go away no matter what happens. And this is his new column, Leah. It's the first time he's published a column in the Daily Mail. He used to write one for the Telegraph,
yes,
obviously, for which he was paid £275,000 a year.
How much would he have been paid for this?
Well, if he was paid that back then for the Telegraph, who knows? It's quite a bit of money. But I mean, this in theory, and they've given it half of the front page, this in theory is all about Boris's weight battles, and we've all seen those pictures of him going jogging, very inappropriately dressed often. So this in theory, I don't know if Paul will agree with it, is about the weight battle and this drug that, you know, it is what's it called, Ozempic for type 2 diabetes, but basically you know it suppresses the appetite. But there's lots of lines in this. I mean, Boris being Boris refers to Latin, he always does, doesn't he? And is, you know, referring to Julius Caesar, who didn't trust skinny men. Bailey, Julius Caesar says, "Let me have men around me who are fat. Yond Cassius has a lean and hungry look." Now, I wonder who he could possibly be referring to if you apply that to modern day politics.
Dawn, that was actually Shakespeare. My producer whispers in my ear.
Oh, right, okay, well, there you go. I mean, this is quoting... Obviously, your producer knows much more than I do. I'm just reading from the Daily Mail. But this is quoting Boris Johnson directly. So, I mean, who is he referring to, I wonder there? But it's been interesting to see what Paul thinks of this, because it is the first column. And, you know, he didn't tell Parliament about it until half hour before it was announced.
Yeah, because Boris, well, he sings to his own rule book, doesn't he? Paul, were you surprised by this?
Was I surprised by the content of the column or the fact that he had a column at all?
All of it.
Well, no, because it's Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson, given the way that he announced it and given the way that he was sent in by Parliament, that's just pretty much as Boris Johnson behaves and acts, and that didn't come as a surprise. The fact he's jumped from the Telegraph to the Mail, I suppose that is something of a surprise, because we always thought of him as being a Telegraph's boy, and they like to have him as their Prime Minister. The content of it, I agree with Dawn, is peculiar, because what do you hire Boris Johnson for? You hire him because, as former Prime Minister, he will give insight, or you'd like to think so. He will give some kind of insight into how the world is and how he feels that the world should be. And the fact that he's doing it with the subtext, as Dawn mentioned, about skinny men rising up against them or potentially leading a leadership challenge, that's all very well, but you do wonder how long he can keep the momentum for this going. There's clear interest in him at the moment because he generates that around him, but can he keep doing the same, well, look at me with my bumbling along column business for another number of weeks and months?
We'll see. Dawn, let's move on. This is in the Times, isn't it? And it's still Boris Johnson.
It is still Boris Johnson.
So it's, what is it? It's these 25 notebooks.
Yes.
That are being withheld from
this is the front page of the Times. Boris is on several front pages, you won't be surprised to hear. He's just not going to go away.
No, he's
here for the front page of the Times. It's security fears over Johnson's notebooks. These are 25 notebooks that he kept while he was in office, and they're being withheld from him by security services, who found highly sensitive information in them. They've also found highly sensitive information in his WhatsApp messages as well, which I didn't think he could access all of them, but I mean, that's another story. So if they are returned to Boris, then they're saying he has to keep them in a secure place because it could be a risk for national security. It makes you wonder, Lil, what has he written in there? I mean, according to the column, it's all about raiding the fridge at midnight for cheese, but possibly that's more sensitive than we know. But basically, it is causing another row between Boris and the government, in particular Rishi Sunak, who wants to move on from all this now and concentrate on winning a general election. But the notebooks, again, are risking another legal battle over what happens to these notebooks. The other part of this story is Boris also asked his supporters not to vote against, the report that's coming
I
out.
wondered about that, and I found that quite curious, because is he stoking the fire really?
Well, you know what I think, Leah? I think slightly cynically that maybe it's, if he does trying to encourage people to vote against it, it might reveal exactly how many supporters he does have. And we know the one thing that Boris likes is to be liked.
So a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, but it's all linked to the COVID inquiry, and these notebooks are supposedly going to be released to the COVID inquiry, but the Cabinet Office is saying they shouldn't be, whereas Boris has said, no, you can have everything I've ever written at all. Or read about it in the Mail next week. No choice.
Paul, let's turn our attention to The Guardian. This big story that we're focusing here at Sky News is about mortgage rates, how they'll increase to at least £3,000. Big worry for people watching at home.
Yes, it's a story that's picked up not just by The Guardian, but by a few of the front pages. And this is, it comes from the Resolution Foundation think tank that are, they look at pushing an agenda to help low and middle incomes so that they can live better. And this is saying that because of inflationary pressures and because of interest rate rises, that those on a fixed rate mortgage, when they come off that fixed rate mortgage this year and into next year, are going to face a massive rise in their repayments. They think somewhere around £2,900 over a year when this rise goes up. And clearly this is going to have an impact on a huge number of people, particularly younger people who've managed to get a mortgage, have probably had to move a lot of things around to hold fast so they can meet repayments. They may have quite a lot of other bills with childcare and so on, and now they're getting hammered again. And The Guardian and other papers are saying, well, look, this is something that really could hammer Sunak's chances of re-election. If it comes later in the year, therefore, is it possible he'll go for a slightly earlier election? Over last winter, there were all the issues with energy price increases, and the government had to try and do something about that. This could be, again, another severe knock to people's finances. And I don't know if the government, well, clearly the government will be under pressure. Can they withstand it? Can they find money to help?
Yeah, and for those trying to even get on the property ladder for the first time, that's going to be such a worry.
They've managed to upset people with mortgages and people who are renting as well. It's quite a win double, that, isn't it?
Dawn, talk to me about the Daily Mirror, because they're focusing on King Charles' first birthday honours list.
Yeah.
Where's your name, Dawn?
Dame Dawn, didn't you know? Oh my God, sorry, the secret's out. Somehow I think, Leah, it's not going to happen, but yeah, front page of Daily Mirror, the bottom half of the page, and this is King Charles's first birthday honours list, which is nice, but the Mirror being the Mirror can't resist having a dig. And take note, Boris, these are honours for people who actually deserve them, after Boris infamously nominated his own dad.
But who are we talking about? We've got Davina McCall.
Absolutely. We have on the list of the, sort of like the sports and showbiz area, you've got our Davina McCall, who's got an MBE. As you know, Leah, she's done a lot of work speaking about women's health recently, in particular the menopause and health and fitness. We also have Ian Wright, footballer Ian Wright, has got an OBE for not just his sporting work, but also his charity as well. Anna Wintour from Vogue gets a damehood.
And there's a picture of her without her sunglasses.
I know, she's started doing that more and more.
I love it very much. Dawn, thank you so much. Paul, we'll speak to you in the next hour. Thank you very much for being here in the studio. I know we'll have to get you in at some point in the future. We'll have more after the break. Thank you.